My name is Tara, and I guess you could say my family fell apart when I was 8. That's when my parents got divorced and Dad moved out. He still paid child support every month though, I found that out later. Mom seemed okay at first. She tried to put on a brave face, but I could tell she was lonely. Then, 2 years after the divorce, she met Robert. Within 6 months, they were married, and suddenly our quiet little house wasn't so quiet anymore. Robert moved in with his 2 kids, Sarah, who was 5, and Michael, who was 4. I was 10 by then, old enough to understand that things were changing, but not old enough to understand why I suddenly felt invisible in my own home. "They're little, Tara," Mom would say whenever I complained about sharing my space. "They need more attention, you're a big girl now." I tried to be understanding, I really did. But it was hard watching Mom transform around Sarah. My mom had never been the type to fuss over clothes or spend hours doing hair, but with Sarah, she changed. She'd spend weekend afternoons shopping with her, buying her pretty dresses and styling her hair in fancy braids. Sarah was quiet and well-behaved around Mom, which only made things worse. "Why can't you be more like Sarah?" became Mom's favorite phrase. But I knew the truth. When Mom wasn't looking, Sarah was a nightmare. "Your mom likes me better," she'd whisper to me when we were alone. "She wishes I was her real daughter." Michael was just as bad. He'd break my things and then run crying to Mom claiming I'd hurt him. They were masters at the innocent act, and Mom fell for it every time. The gap between Mom and me grew wider every year. By the time I was 12, we barely talked except when she was yelling at me for something Sarah or Michael claimed I'd done. Dad would call sometimes, and I'd try to tell him how things were, but I always held back. I didn't want him to worry or think I couldn't handle it. My teenage years were even worse. Sarah and Michael got bolder with their tricks. They'd hide my homework, delete files from my computer, and tear pages from my books. When I complained to Mom, she'd just sigh. "They're just being kids, Tara, you need to be more mature." Robert wasn't any help either. He spoiled his kids rotten and expected Mom to do the same. And she did, buying them expensive gifts while I got the bare minimum. "We don't have money for that," she'd say when I asked for new shoes for track, but somehow there was always money for Michael's video games or Sarah's dance lessons. The worst day came when I was 15. I'd been working on a project for the school science fair all week. It was a model of a sustainable city, with tiny solar panels that actually worked and a water recycling system. I was really proud of it, and I had a good chance of winning first place. I'd gone out to grab lunch, and when I came back, my project was ruined. Sarah, who was 10 by then, had torn off the solar panels, broken the water system, and splashed bright paint all over everything. She was still there, paintbrush in hand, when I walked in. "Oops," she said with a smirk, "I was just trying to make it prettier." Something in me snapped. After years of taking their abuse, I couldn't hold back anymore. I grabbed her by the shoulders and pushed her face into the same paint she'd used to destroy my work. "How do you like it?" I screamed. "How does it feel when someone ruins something you care about?" Sarah burst into tears and ran to find Mom, paint dripping down her face. Mom came storming in minutes later. "What is wrong with you?" she yelled, not even looking at my destroyed project. "She's just a child." "Look what she did to my project," I shouted back. "I've been working on this for a week. The science fair is tomorrow." Mom glanced at the ruined model. She was just trying to help. She didn't mean any harm. She did this on purpose. She always does this stuff on purpose, and you never believe me. Mom's face twisted with anger. "That's enough," she shouted, and before I could react, she slapped me across the face. The room went silent. She'd never hit me before. I touched my stinging cheek, tears welling in my eyes. Robert appeared in the doorway, Sarah hiding behind him with a victorious smile that only I could see. "What's going on in here?" he demanded. "Tara attacked Sarah," Mom said, her voice shaking. "She pushed her face in paint. After she destroyed my science project," I protested. "A project that took me a week to build." Robert looked at me with disgust. "I've had enough of this," he said coldly. "Marie, you need to choose, either she goes, or we go." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own mother was being asked to choose between me and her new family. I looked at her, waiting for her to defend me, to tell Robert he was out of line. Instead, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You've been nothing but trouble since they moved in. Maybe you should go live with your father." Her words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled backward, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. My own mother had just told me I was unwanted in my own home. "Fine," I managed to say through my tears, "I'll call Dad." I went to my room, hands shaking as I dialed his number. When he answered, I could barely speak through my sobs. "Dad," I choked out, "can I come live with you, please?" 2 hours later, Dad pulled up in front of the house. I had packed everything I could fit into 2 suitcases. Mom didn't even come out to say goodbye. Moving in with Dad changed everything. His apartment was smaller than our old house, but it felt more like home than anywhere I'd lived in years. Dad was a successful businessman who owned a marketing company, and I quickly realized he had a pretty good life. The first morning I woke up there, he'd already made breakfast. "Sleep okay, kiddo?" he asked, sliding a plate of pancakes across the counter. "Yeah," I said, still not used to the quiet. No Sarah stealing my stuff, no Michael breaking things and blaming me, just peace. Dad looked at me with concern in his eyes. "I'm sorry about what happened, Tara. I should have known things weren't good." I shrugged, "It's not your fault." "Well, we're going to figure this out together, okay?" He reached over and squeezed my hand. "I've already called a lawyer about getting full custody." The next day, Dad introduced me to his lawyer, Ms. Rivera. She was a no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes and a determined expression. "So you want to live with your father permanently?" she asked me directly. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "My mom chose her new husband and his kids over me." Ms. Rivera nodded. "It won't be an easy process, especially if your mother contests it." "Are you prepared for that?" I remembered the look in Mom's eyes when she told me to leave. "She won't contest it," I said confidently. "She made her choice clear." I was right. When the paperwork arrived, Mom signed away her parental rights without a fight. Dad became my sole guardian, and the child support payments stopped. It hurt more than I wanted to admit, knowing how easily she let me go. Life with Dad settled into a comfortable routine. I transferred to a new high school, where nobody knew about my family drama. Dad helped me with homework, taught me to drive, and always made time to listen when I needed to talk. The best part was, I never felt like I was competing for his attention. Sometimes I'd run into Sarah or Michael at school events, since our schools were in the same district. They'd glare at me from across the room, but they never approached me. And on the rare occasions when Mom was there to pick them up, she'd pretend not to see me. It stung at first, but eventually, I stopped caring. "She thinks she's so cool now that she lives with her rich dad," I overheard Sarah telling her friends once. I just walked past with my head held high. Let them think what they wanted. With Dad's encouragement, I focused on my studies. My grades improved, and I started making real friends who liked me for who I was. By senior year, I had my sights set on college. "Pick wherever you want to go," Dad told me. "I've been saving for your education since you were born." I chose State University, which had an excellent business program. Dad was thrilled when I told him I wanted to follow in his footsteps. "Nothing would make me prouder," he said, hugging me tight. The day I graduated high school, I scanned the audience for Mom's face out of habit. She wasn't there, of course. But Dad was, cheering louder than anyone when I walked across the stage to get my diploma. College flew by in a blur of classes, new friends, and late-night study sessions. I double majored in business and marketing, and Dad was always there with advice and support. He'd visit me at least once a month, bringing home-cooked meals and making sure I was doing okay. During my senior year of college, Dad surprised me with a gift I never expected. "I bought you an apartment," he announced over dinner during one of his visits. It's not huge, but it's in a good neighborhood. You'll have a place of your own after graduation. I nearly choked on my pasta. Dad, that's way too much. He shook his head, smiling. I've done well, Tara. I want you to have a good start. No rent to worry about while you're building your career. After graduation, I moved into my new apartment. It was perfect, 2 bedrooms, a modern kitchen, and a small balcony with a view of the city park. Dad had even furnished it for me. True to his word, Dad also offered me a position at his company. I started at entry level, despite his ownership, because we both agreed I should earn my promotions. I worked hard and learned quickly. By the time I turned 25, I'd been promoted twice and was managing my own team. Dad was obviously proud but never made a big deal about it at work. For 3 years, life was pretty much perfect. I had my own place, a job I loved, and a dad who supported me in everything I did. I barely thought about Mom or my step-siblings anymore. That chapter of my life seemed firmly closed. Then one ordinary Tuesday, everything fell apart again. I was in a meeting when Dad's assistant knocked on the door, her face pale. Tara, you need to come with me right away. In the hallway, she told me Dad had collapsed in his office. By the time I got to the hospital, it was too late. A massive heart attack, the doctors said. Nothing anyone could have done. At 26, I found myself planning my father's funeral. I moved through the days in a fog of grief, handling the arrangements mechanically because I knew Dad would want things done properly. The funeral home, the obituary, the reception afterward, I took care of it all, barely letting myself feel the crushing weight of what I'd lost. The morning after Dad died, someone knocked on my apartment door. When I opened it, I nearly slammed it shut again in shock. Mom stood there, looking older but still recognizable. Tara, she said softly, I heard about your father, I'm so sorry. I stood in the doorway, staring at my mother in disbelief. It had been over 10 years since we'd spoken. What are you doing here? I managed to ask, my voice hoarse from crying. I heard about your father from your cousin Ben, she said, her eyes filled with what looked like genuine sadness. May I come in? I hesitated, then stepped aside. Mom walked into my apartment and looked around, taking in the modern furniture Dad had helped me pick out. This is a lovely place, she said quietly. Dad bought it for me, I replied, watching her reaction carefully. She nodded, he always wanted the best for you. An awkward silence fell between us. I had no idea what to say to this woman who had once told me I was unwanted in my own home. Tara, Mom finally said, I know we have a complicated history. But I couldn't let you go through this alone. I want to help with the funeral arrangements. I know it's a lot to handle by yourself. I was about to refuse when I realized how overwhelmed I felt. Dad had been my only family for so long. I had friends, of course, but organizing a funeral required family. Okay, I said cautiously, I could use some help. Over the next few days, Mom took charge of the details I couldn't face, calling Dad's extended family, arranging the service, ordering flowers. She was efficient and thoughtful, remembering things I would have forgotten in my grief. At the funeral, she sat beside me, handing me tissues when I needed them. I caught her wiping away her own tears during the eulogy. Your father was a good man, she whispered to me afterward. He raised you well. It was the first genuine compliment she'd given me in years. After the funeral came the reading of the will. Mom offered to come with me, and I accepted. The lawyer explained that Dad had left me everything, his house, his company, and all his savings. It was a substantial inheritance, more than I'd expected. Mom squeezed my hand. He wanted to make sure you were taken care of. As the weeks passed, Mom and I began to rebuild a tentative relationship. She invited me to dinner at her house, and I was surprised to find myself accepting. Robert, Sarah, and Michael were there, all grown up now but still recognizable. They were polite, even friendly. Sarah, now 21, hugged me when I arrived. I'm sorry about your dad, she said. And I'm sorry about how we treated you when we were kids. Michael, 20, nodded in agreement. We were little jerks. I hope we can start over. I was suspicious at first, but their kindness seemed genuine. Robert was less enthusiastic but civil. We ate dinner together, and for the first time in years, I felt like I might have a family again. You should come over more often, Mom said as I was leaving. Our doors are always open for you. She pressed her house keys into my hand. In case you ever need to stop by. Later that week, as I sat alone in Dad's office at the company, trying to figure out how to run a business I wasn't ready for, Mom called to check on me. Are you doing okay? She asked. Not really, I admitted. I don't know if I can handle the company by myself. You don't have to do everything alone anymore, Tara, she said gently. You have us now. I started visiting Mom's house regularly. The more time I spent with them, the more I believed we had finally put the past behind us. We talked about what had happened when I was 15, and Mom actually apologized. I was wrong, she said, her eyes filled with regret. I chose Robert and his kids over you, and it was the biggest mistake of my life. I've regretted it every day since. I wanted to believe her, maybe I needed to believe her. Then the requests for money started. Small at first, Mom asking if I could help with a $150 utility bill because they were a little short this month. I gave it to her without hesitation. Then it was $200 for Michael's textbooks. Then $300 for car repairs. I didn't mind helping out, I had more than enough money now, and it felt good to be needed. Sarah and Mom started inviting me shopping, and somehow I always ended up paying for everything. I'd walk around the mall with them, Sarah trying on outfit after outfit, Mom encouraging her. That looks gorgeous on you, honey, Mom would say, then turn to me, don't you think so, Tara? And I'd nod and hand over my credit card at the register, telling myself this was what families did for each other. I began buying groceries for them too, showing up at their house with bags full of food. They always seemed genuinely grateful, especially Robert, who would clap me on the shoulder and say, "You're a good kid, Tara. Better than we deserved." One Friday evening, about 6 months after Dad's death, I decided to surprise them. I picked up food from their favorite restaurant, expensive steaks and gourmet sides, and drove to their house. I used the key Mom had given me to let myself in quietly, planning to set up dinner as a treat. I could hear laughter coming from the living room as I entered. The TV was on, music playing quietly beneath their conversation. I was about to call out when I heard my name. "Tara's such a pushover," Sarah was saying, her voice slurred slightly. "She must have been drinking. All I have to do is pretend I like her stupid business stories, and she buys me whatever I want." I froze in the hallway, the bags of food heavy in my hands. "It's not fair that she got all that money and property," Sarah continued, her voice bitter. "She doesn't even deserve it, she's not smart enough to run that company." "She is pretty stupid," Mom agreed, and I heard the clink of ice in a glass. "Always has been, easy to manipulate." My heart pounded in my chest. I wanted to storm in there, to confront them, but something held me back. I needed to hear more. "We need to keep playing nice," Robert said, his voice practical. "She's our meal ticket now." "Don't worry," Mom replied, laughing, "I've already got a plan. Sarah, you should ask to move into her second apartment. The one she doesn't use. She'll say yes because she's desperate to be part of the family. And then we convince her to give it to me," Sarah finished. "Don't forget to ask for money," Michael chimed in, "I want a new car." "I'll keep playing the loving mother," Mom said, and they all laughed. I'd heard enough, my hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the food. Quietly, I backed up to the front door, then opened and closed it loudly. "Hello?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "I brought dinner." Mom appeared in the hallway, her face lighting up with what I now knew was fake affection. "Tara, what a wonderful surprise," she hugged me tightly, and it took everything in me not to push her away. I managed to keep my composure through dinner, smiling and nodding while my stomach churned with disgust. I made up an excuse about an early meeting and left after just 15 minutes. As I drove home, tears blurred my vision. How could I have been so stupid? They hadn't changed at all. For the next few days, I avoided their calls. I needed time to think, to process what I'd heard. Part of me wanted to confront them immediately, to tell them I knew exactly what they were doing. But another part of me, the part that had learned to be strategic from working with Dad, thought it might be better to wait. Sure enough, Mom called a week later. "Tara, honey, we haven't seen you in days. I was hoping you could come over tonight. We need to talk about something important." "I'll be there at 7, I said, knowing exactly what was coming. When I arrived, the whole family was waiting in the living room. Mom had made my favorite dessert, clearly trying to butter me up. Sarah was practically bouncing with excitement. "Tara," Mom began, taking my hands in hers, "we wanted to talk to you about Sarah's situation. She's 21 now, and she has a serious boyfriend, Jason. They've been looking for a place to live together, but as you know, rent is so expensive these days." I noticed Sarah had conveniently brought Jason along. He gave me an awkward wave from the couch. "We were thinking," Mom continued, "since you have that second apartment that's just sitting empty, maybe Sarah and Jason could stay there? Just until they get on their feet." I tilted my head, pretending to consider it. "I'll think about it." Sarah squealed and rushed over to hug me. Thank you, thank you, thank you, I knew you'd understand." The next day, Sarah texted me, "Just gave notice at my apartment. Jason and I can move in this weekend, let me know where to pick up the keys." I didn't respond right away. Let her think she had me wrapped around her finger one last time. 2 days later, Sarah called me, her voice frantic. "Tara, we're outside your apartment with all our stuff, but you're not here. Where are you? We need the keys." I took a deep breath. "Sarah, I never said you could move into my apartment." There was a moment of stunned silence. But you said you'd think about it." "Yes, and I did think about it, the answer is no." "You can't do this to us," she shrieked, "we have nowhere to go. We already gave up our apartment." "That sounds like a you problem," I said coolly. "You should have waited for a definite answer before giving notice." "But we're family," her voice cracked with what I might have believed was genuine distress if I hadn't overheard their conversation. "Are we, Sarah? Because I heard you all talking about me last week. I heard what you really think of me." Another silence, longer this time. "What are you talking about?" "I was there, Sarah, I heard you call me stupid. I heard Mom laughing about manipulating me. I heard your plans to take advantage of me." That was just a joke," she stammered, "we were just kidding around." "Well, now it's my turn to laugh," I said. "Enjoy looking for a new apartment." I hung up. Mom called next, her voice alternating between pleading and angry. I let it go to voicemail. Then she showed up at my office, causing a scene in the lobby until I agreed to see her. "How could you do this to your sister?" she demanded as soon as the door closed behind her. "Stepsister," I corrected, and easily. "The same way you chose them over me 11 years ago." Mom's expression changed, softening into the concerned maternal look I now recognized as completely fake. "Tara, sweetheart, I know we've had our problems, but we've moved past all that, haven't we? We're a family again." I laughed bitterly. "We were never a family. You made that clear when I was 15, and you made it clear again when I heard you planning to use me for my money." Her face fell, the act finally dropping. "You don't understand. We've been struggling financially, Robert lost his job last year, we need help." "Then you should have been honest and asked for help, not pretended to care about me just to get to Dad's money." "I do care about you," she insisted, but her eyes gave her away. "No, you don't, and you know what? That's okay, I don't need you to care anymore, I have my own life now." She switched tactics, her voice growing hard. "We'll contest the will. Your father wasn't in his right mind when he left everything to you." I smiled. "Go ahead and try. Dad's will is ironclad, and I have the best lawyers in the city. But if you harass me again, I'll get a restraining order." For the next few weeks, they tried everything: calls, texts, emails, even showing up at my home and office. Sometimes they begged, sometimes they threatened. I blocked their numbers and instructed security not to let them in anywhere. Finally, I had my lawyer draft an official letter warning them that any further contact would be considered harassment and result in legal action. After that, the calls stopped. I threw myself into running Dad's company. It wasn't easy, but I had good people around me, employees who had respected my father and were willing to help me learn. Slowly, I found my footing. The business continued to thrive under my leadership, and I felt Dad would have been proud. As for the apartment they so desperately wanted, I decided to keep it. Someday I might have children of my own who would need a place to stay. Children I would love unconditionally, who would never doubt they belonged in my family. Sometimes I wonder about Mom and the others. I hear bits and pieces through mutual acquaintances. Sarah finally got married, Michael dropped out of college, Robert found another job. I don't wish them ill, but I don't wish them back in my life either. I built my own family now, close friends who genuinely care, colleagues who respect me, and someday, perhaps, a partner and children. I've learned that you can choose your family, and I've chosen people who love me for who I am, not what I can give them.